All right, we are live. Welcome everyone to Meet the Masters. Tim Watson here with my good friend Mohamad Mabrouk. Master Mabrouk, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. Good afternoon, everyone.
What's up, man? How's it going right now?
Not too shabby.
You've had a pretty quiet summer, right?
Yeah, you could say that. It was very relaxing, and we didn't do much for the entire summer. Outside of trying to visit all 5 national parks and then moving and making our way back to the East Coast, right?
Yeah, right. That was crazy when you sent me the list of all the stuff that you guys were going to hit before you came back from Utah. That was impressive.
Right? I know. It's so funny because Stephanie, Mrs. Master Mabrouk, she's always like sitting there going, we gotta do all of these things. And I'm like, babe, there's just so much, like, and now we're leaving. And she's like, no, but because we're leaving, we have to get all this done. So I'm always like reluctantly figuring out, do I want to do this? Do I not? And then she's like, just make it happen. And then I start, I'm the family travel agent.
That's right.
So I sit there and I start planning everything. So I'm like, all right, each weekend, this is what we have. And it was definitely worth it. It was definitely worth it. We were very lucky and very blessed that we were able to do those things. So
if anyone needs any travel plans, you can see Mojo Travels.
Yes, not only for self-defense, but also for travel needs.
That's right. No, man, we've been able to travel with you guys quite a bit, and you're the man with that. I appreciate all the work that you do when we do travel.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. It's kind of interesting because my dad used to always want to do that as well. Like he was like, in another life, if I had a chance, I would be a tour guide. Like he wanted to go back to the Middle East and just be a tour guide. And I was like, you'd be really good at that. I think you would be great, but it never panned out because he was always here in the US, just to stay close to us and things. But I feel like getting the travel stuff coordinated is a nice outlet for me as everything else goes on in life. But it's good. It's good.
Awesome. We have lots of people jumping in, so I'm just going to run through some people that said hello. We got Master Wheeler. We got Lindsay from Great Britain. Rusty, who also says, tell Master Mo he needs to travel to Region 21. Master McCarty. Master G says, love Master Mo, like Master Giselle Sharp. Brian Ormiston and Tom Lyons.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone.
Everyone's checking us out today. I was saying offline that I was excited to get a chance to finally talk to you. If anyone doesn't know, Mo and I, and Mo, our families honestly have been great friends for many years. Mm-hmm. And Master Setianto, who kind of between him and I spearheaded the project, he hit like lots of our good friends, including our instructor, Master Godwin, and then Mohamad and Master I, Master Vaughn, Master Sharp, and then he pieced out. So, speaking of Master Setianto, there he is. And Joe Bell. So everyone's checking in. Awesome. So if anyone hasn't seen Master Setianto's interview with Master Mabrouk, I encourage you to. So if we don't hit something in this interview, chances are they talked about it on the other one. And if you don't find it on that one, just send Mohamad a message and he'll be happy to share.
Absolutely. Definitely. One thing that I've really enjoyed listening to a lot of these interviews, and I think I echo what many of the instructors and masters have said during these conversations, is the value that you gain and the little nuggets of gold that you gain when you're listening to all of them is just, it's wonderful. It's a long list and I love it. And it's an opportunity to listen. And it's one of those things that you'll sometimes want to re-listen to, mm-hmm. just to kind of pick up some nuances and seeing that the differences that everyone makes and the challenges that they faced in their lives and how they've overcome them is really inspiring. So I definitely appreciate what you're doing, Master Watson, with all of this. And I definitely really, really appreciate and value our friendship. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you're welcome. You talked about little nuggets, and there's lots of little nuggets that I have gotten, and that I now talk about in my own training and teaching. Um, yeah, it's fun. It's been a fun ride. I think you're episode 67 or something like that. So
Yes.
um, man, not that I'm surprised when it's you, but Master Javid says the legend. So
Oh gosh.
I know, right? You're the man. So like I said, you kind of touched base with Master Setianto as far as how and why you started training. What I wanted to ask you to kind of start off with was, do you have any memories of those early trainings and memories of training or things that Master Godwin said, or possibly some of the people that you trained with early on? Because remind us, how old were you when you started training?
I was 8.
Okay.
So I started in 91. And I finally figured that out because I found a picture of me and Master Godwin, I believe, when I was getting my green belt in 92. So that's my closest documentation or evidence that it was 91 when I started. And then I have my black belt certificate when I was 12. And I have my my full mustache because I was the only 12-year-old with a mustache. But I have that in my at my parents' house, and I want to say it said 94 or something like that. So it's right around that time frame. But yeah, training. So it's actually interesting. I didn't train with Master Godwin, like really train with Master Godwin, until I received my black belt, getting close to 2nd degree black belt. As a GUP student growing into the ranks, my primary instructors were Mr. Carr, Mr. Literal, and Mr. Phil Harrington. And those three played great influences in my life. Mr. Carr, his energy was just out of this world, man. Like and at the time I didn't know, right? Because I'm 8 years old. I have no idea. And I didn't realize how militaristic Mr. Carr was, but I just loved his energy. So he'd be like, yeah, boy, get down and give me 10 pushes. And I'm like, yes, sir. And I'm like, this is awesome, amazing, right? I have no clue, right? Because I'm 8. What do I know? Mr. Literal was kind of, he had this calm tone to him as he was teaching, but then when he got excited, it's like it made you jump, it made you excited. And Mr. Harrington, I want to say, he helped me grow into the mold and mature as a teenager, because I grew up with him. And originally I was one of his students, but then I became an assistant instructor. So I started to lead under Master Godwin and things like that. So as far as instructors are concerned, those were the 3 individuals that I really worked with. And then, of course, Chrissy Sheridan, she was also there. Don Pomelterry, he was also there, but they were on the younger side. So they were assistant instructing at the time. Before, when I got to like brown belt, they became full-time instructors, and then I got to learn from them. And it was just, it was amazing. All I did when I was a GUP was just absorb. And then I had to learn how to perform at a level that was in compliance with my dad, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Because like every time I'd leave class, my dad would be like, why is your front stance not like where it's supposed to be? You need to pay attention in class. And then he'd be like, I'm going to go talk to Master Godwin about this. And I'm like, okay, like I have no idea, right? I'm just like, all right, Dad said I got to get lower and all this stuff. So as I grew older and then started hearing these stories from other perspectives, like Mr. Harrington would tell me about this and Master Godwin would tell me about these stories, it was very eye-opening just to see the level of commitment that my dad had towards the martial arts and my improvement, right? Which is why I always echo to a lot of parents that this is not just the student, right? This is the student, the instructor, and the parent, all of us together, working together to really formulate that bond for the student to make them a better person. But I never saw that until I grew up, right?
Yeah, talking to guys that started and ladies that started as a kid, it's interesting to get that perspective because, like you said, as a kid, we don't see that part. And then as you grow up and actually become an instructor and become a parent, you realize all the background. Like it's amazing everything that was happening that we were just clueless to because we were kids.
Like
But
I had no idea.
yeah, in some way that push from your dad, not molded you not just as a martial artist, but obviously, outside as a man and a leader as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I agree. I agree.
It's funny. Last Friday, I was talking. Mr. O'Reilly came in and trained with us in the morning, and we were talking about Mr. Carr, and he said that every once in a while, every 3 or 4 years, he'll just show up at his knock on his door.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he'll be, Kevin, how are you?
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's like, I'll be like, Mark, where did you come from? Like he doesn't call, he just shows up. That sounds about right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Master Setianto says he was hardcore with a gravelly voice, and then he's in Okinawa now. Yeah, so that's kind of crazy. Yeah. I only got to train with him once. He came to Hokkessin and taught a class in Uechi-ryu, which is
nice.
He trains in now. So going back to those days, as far as training goes, when did you realize that there was a bigger association outside of the studio? Like, were there glimpses from the beginning, or when did you finally realize, like, whoa, this is bigger than just my own studio?
It's interesting that you say that. Now, I want to say it was probably at the regional clinic was where I started seeing that, because before Region 8 camps existed, we just went to Camp Bramblewood, right? So it was just Master Godwin's schools for the most part, or at least what I was aware of, where the advanced belts had a chance to go. And when Master Godwin's school was at Newport, I just remember, like, this is one of my fondest memories. I remember my dad coordinating with one of the other students' parents saying, hey, I can drop them off if you can pick them up and then take them back to the studio. And we went through that, and we came back to the studio only to find out that my dad wasn't there to pick me up. So I ended up walking home, and it was like 2.5, 3 miles to get to the house from where we lived in the past. But I didn't know any better. There were no cell phones at the time. So kind of some of those growth periods. And I felt like the organization was large because it was all of Master Godwin's schools. Then I go to this black belt camp, and now it's not about the number of students. It was more about the number of schools and studios. I'm like, wow, look at all of these instructors. There's a lot more to this than meets the eye. And when you're young, again, right, like any young person, I'm just there to try to prove myself against all of these other people. And I'm looking at it, but it didn't really click until I started teaching, and I was 15 and 16 and then going to all of these events where I realized, that there's something more to this. And I didn't really start competing until I got my 2nd degree black belt. And I went to the Red Rose tournament, which was run by Master Bean. Yeah. And I showed up, and there was probably 300 competitors there. And I was like, oh man, this is what's up. I got this down. I can't wait to win this tournament. This is going to be amazing. 0 place, 0 place, 0 place, right? Like there was nothing. I did my first move on my bong form, and I broke my bong, and it was a wrap. And then, you get in your own head, and then I lose in sparring, and Dante walks up to me. He's like, man, how could you lose? I can't believe you lost. And I'm just like sitting there going, I can't believe I lost either. Right. So it was really humbling, and it was a really great experience to see that. And then, this isn't just a hodgepodge, hey, let's all get together and compete, right? This is a well-run, oiled machine that's trying to make a bigger picture around all of these things. And that's when it really.
That's awesome. And it's a great story. Students say all the time, like, oh, you're really good at, name this move. And it's like, well, yeah, I had a lot of, you didn't see all the hours that I put into that. And Same goes for competing as well. You know, you see someone that's like, oh man, that guy's been amazing forever. It's like, well, you know, not so much, but you know, you see the finished product sometimes and you take for granted that they're just, you know, good. But
Absolutely.
I can speak from experience, knowing you, how much work that you put into everything you do. And we can kind of get into that a little farther down the road. Master Marco says hello from Sweden.
Yes. Hello, Master Marco.
Master Godwin says Master Mabrouk is one of the best in the world at teaching Tong Sudo and Hapkido, as well as a top practitioner.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
And Master Soto from San Diego, sending love from San Diego. I want to be like him when I grow up.
Oh gosh, you're too kind.
Hey, Master Soto, check it out.
Yes.
I got my Mass Tong Sudo coffee mug representing. I will see you at Nationals, sir.
So nice.
So you mentioned your first on certificate being at your parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
One of the memories that I have, well, I have lots of memories at your parents' house. One is your mom's amazing lamb. I haven't had it in who knows how long, but it's still probably one of the greatest things I've ever eaten in my life. But your parents had a room, you know, it was like an office that basically was filled with your trophies and certificates and all of your martial arts stuff. Is it still there? And how did that come about? Like it's like, well, I'll just put it in the room.
You know, I never asked them to do any of that. I felt like obviously there's a sense of pride from my parents to, you know, everybody wants to show off their kid. And in Arabic culture, it's almost like hey, my kid does this, and then they want to one up somebody. Well, oh yeah, well, my kid does that. And so it just started accumulating, and they were proud of it, right? Like there's nothing wrong with being proud of your kid. I never really had anything to do with it. There's actually only one trophy that I have kept that I keep with me. Mm-hmm. The World Championship medals we have, most of the trophies are at my parents' house. Now they're actually in the basement just because, like I told them, I was like, guys, you know, if you're doing this for me, don't worry. It's no longer a motivation. I'm good, right? Like you don't have to do that. But I have one trophy, and it's my first regional grand champion trophy that I got as a youth. And I got 2 seconds and a first. And my first place was in sparring, and it was against Master Davis. And so that was the pinnacle of, for me, my ability to know that I can compete with the best, right? And so that has a personal sentiment for me personally, right? Compared to like all of the other trophies, which still meant a lot, but at the end of the day, it's material, right? The journey, the stuff that I learned in gaining those trophies was huge for me. And, you know, it's a shiny piece for my parents, but ultimately they were excited because when people would come, you know, it's a cool showpiece. It's a good story to have. And yeah, they're all in the basement now. They're not too many of them got, you know, ruined by any floods, but yeah, I still have, like, my kids, when they go to the basement, they're like, did you get that? You know, it's like one of those 6-foot range trophies.
Well, it wasn't like it wasn't just like an office with like trophies in it. It was a trophy room. Like there literally wasn't anything else in it. It was, you know, at least 100 different trophies, hundreds of trophies. So I always walk in, it's like, whoa. I don't really have any. I had my medals for years, but I think on our last time that we, like Aaron and I, between the two of us, and I'm sure it's the same with you guys.
Yeah.
We just had a box of medals, and it's like, all right, what are we gonna do with these?
Exactly.
You mentioned Master Davis and being able to win against him in sparring was a pivotal moment for you. Explain to people why was that a moment that you were kind of proud of as an accomplishment?
Yeah, I consider Master Davis one of my best friends, not only in real life, but also in martial arts, because I didn't know him as a gup, right? So his seniority over me is so high that I could never fathom or account for it. When he was a third Dan, I had just received my second Dan. And I really, the only time that I had encounters with him before competition was few and far between, because we never really connected at that level. Then when we started competing and we kind of became, because once you get black belt, it takes a while for you to go into, go to other ranks. So you're there a little bit longer. I started to have my encounters with him, and just, man, to say like the technical aptitude that he has far exceeds anyone that I have ever met would be an understatement. Like his ability to be so meticulous and understanding of the different movements and how they have to be created was just one of his greatest accomplishments in my mind. And he was really good at sparring. So not only was he great at forms, but he was really good at sparring. So he was always a very well-rounded person, and I could never beat him, right? Like he would always whoop my butt every time. I was going to use some other language, but he would just crush me. And he was one of the first people to ever hit me in the face, where I was like, holy crap, I just got hit in the face. Like this kind of stuff is new to me. And that's really why. And even after the match, it could have gone either way, but he came up to me and he was like, man, that was good. You deserved it. And those words of "you deserved it" are what really pay a large toll in my life, because a lot of people, they sit there and they say, oh man, I got first place here, I got first place there. The question is, did you earn it or did you deserve it? Because sometimes you'll get first place, but you don't feel like you got first place. And sometimes you got fourth, fifth place, but you got fourth or fifth place and you earned it, and you enjoyed that opportunity. You know what I mean?
I actually do. I have a story. It might have been the one and only time that I competed with you. It was a regionals, and they put us all in the same division. So it was first, second, and third all together. And I won my first match, and then my second round match was you.
Mm-hmm.
And you beat me 3-1. And I was just proud that I'd even gotten a point on you. And then I remember I got co-third place, and it was you won, and then Jason Church was second, and then I was third, and I think Jason Conrad was co-third. And it was one of those moments where I looked up to you. Jason was one of the guys that helped teach me and helped mold me as a black belt, or as a color belt student. So that was one of those moments where, would I've liked to have gotten a better medal? Yeah. Was it going to happen that year? No. So yeah, that was a big moment for me. So I understand 100% of what you just said. Is that third place medal meant a lot to me, and it helped push me going forward.
Yeah, and to be quite honest with you, even throughout the years and as we continue to train together, like the level of improvement that I've seen you have, and even when we're sparring, it's like, every time you go in there, and one of the greatest accomplishments that you always see as an instructor is how your students get better. And what you want as an instructor or a teacher is to see your students do better than you. And man, like, you came under the Master Mabrouk tutelage of round kicks and side kicks and same chambers and all of that stuff. And I'm just always impressed, because we're continuing to get older, but our timing and our speed is still there for now, I guess you could say. So I still thoroughly enjoy those moments. I'm like, man, he got me good that time. I got to get it back.
One of my favorite Master Mabrouk quotes was, when I was a color belt or an early black belt, I was like, man, you're so fast. He's like, no, I'm not. It's just all about timing. It's all about timing. And that has stuck with me to this day. Like, you're right. That's exactly what it is. Jovel says, Master Mo teaches with energy, just to be with him and learning. He said, thanks for being a role model.
No, it's my
He also
pleasure.
said you helped break his mental language barrier to share Tong Sudo with my family from the USA. Thank you for being an inspiration and a role model. Every minute that I have the opportunity to train with Master Mo is a great learning experience for me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Master.
Master Wheeler says Master Mo is so good he can take first, second, and third place all by himself.
Y'all are too kind.
Yeah, the words you talked about, Master Davis, and he's one that I need to get on here to talk to. And I've said this to everyone that will listen to me. I don't think I ever actually took a class with him, but doing prep for tournaments or him coming up to me and sharing something with me after a tournament has shaped. Like, there's so many things that I can attribute to his little details that made me a much better martial artist.
Absolutely. I mean, Master Davis and I'll let him share the story of when we went to California for the 2000 Worlds, right? But I would say everything culminated in 1998, where we started training together. There was the Red Rose tournament. He watched me compete and he was like, man, here are some things that you got to do. And I was like, oh, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And then he and I started to train together in a bigger format. And we trained for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours after teaching, right? So we would teach classes. And at the time we were in high school. So what difference did it make for us? We're like, all right, we don't get to do homework. If we're just there. And as we're training, the stuff that we would train on was that of Master Fisher, Master Godwin. It's like all of those things. Like, I remember hearing stories about Master Fisher, like he would be training his Chun B, and he would just train on Chun B for like 30 minutes before moving on to the next move. And it's like making sure that your feet are lined up and all of these things. And Master Davis had all of those nuances. And to be honest with you, he and I were fueled by a particular school that is the name that shall be called Black Belt Academy. I don't know if you've heard of them, but my understanding is that their senior master that's there is one of the most smartest, inspirational individuals that I've ever met. But when I was young, I did not like them very much. Right? Like they would always beat us. We're like, what is up with these Black Belt Academy students? And Master Davis and I would sit there and we'd start talking to each other. We're like, I don't get it. Like, we have the intensity, this and that. And then we started paying attention to the details, right? God rest his soul, Master Massaroni was one of the finest martial arts technicians that we've ever watched. And he was tall and he was able to use his body, the way that it needed to for a martial arts competition. And we started to pay attention to those things. So we were very excited. It's always exciting when you find someone that's better than you, because at least for me, I don't know about other people, but for me it is, because it gives me a goal to work towards. And then when I reach that goal, it's how do I stay on top? How do I keep improving? And how do I innovate so that I can help bring others up as well? And watching the students and everyone else from that perspective and seeing the growth that we have and seeing how they compete is really, we're doing things the right way.
Yeah, I like the word innovate. So one of the things that I always loved watching as far as you competing or just performing is the performance aspect of doing forms. And I try to explain it to people that it's a performance. You have to make the judges feel it. So if the analogy I give, you got 10 people in your division, you're all going to do the same form. What makes your form stand out from everyone else's?
Exactly.
So what do you think made your performances, your form stand out from everyone else? And what are the things that you try to explain to people, like what separated you from others? I know it's a hard question, but
that's a great question. I think the separation, because I was not as talented as others, right? Like my kicks were not as high, my technique was not as strong. So my mental capacity was around the lines of, in order for me to do this, I literally have to work harder than everyone else. Like there's no other way for me to accomplish this. It might take Master Davis 30 minutes to an hour for him to tune his stuff up, right? For me, it'll take me about 3 hours just to catch up to him. And at that time, mentally for me, I knew that that's what I needed to do. So, you know, when we talk about this, and during Master Setyanto's test on Saturday, and he just recently posted a story online about earning a black belt and black belt excellence. Everybody can show you all the tools, but unless you're willing to use it and put the effort in for it, it's meaningless, right? So the first question that you as a competitor have to ask yourself, or you as a student have to ask yourself, am I willing to put in the work? And am I okay that it's different from everyone else, right? Because I think that that's the biggest point in line is, it might take me longer than everyone else. It might take me less time, but am I willing to do that? 3 super easy components for everyone to get through, and you can start this at the GUP level and then they work through it, are the head turns, the stances, and the chambers. If you're able to accomplish those 3 things, your form is already above all else. And everybody thinks that that's easy, but it's really not. Because when you're talking about head turns, it's not just turning your head, right? Like we've all seen it. It's not just turning. It's like those distinct intentional movements that happen. Then what I did with my stances, at the time when we were competing, it was about low stances and solid stances from that perspective. I know now kind of the stances raised up a little bit to show a little more balance with what you're doing. But my opposition to that is, if I'm able to stay low for the entire form, then what difference does it make? Because I'm demonstrating the strength and endurance that it takes to stay at that level. And that creates a difference. So those were the things that I was thinking in my head. I practiced the knife form. I always practiced with heavy equipment because I figured if I practiced with the regular material, it would make my life easier. But that would be my take, is how much work are you willing to put in? Knowing that it's on you. It's not on your parents. It's not on your instructor. It's not on your spouse. It's not on anybody except you. How much work are you willing to put in? And then, at least for beginners, focusing on those 3 elements. For the advanced students, man, it's the small things. It's the tiny things. How many times have you seen a black belt compete and their wrist looks like this on a chamber, right? Those are the things that always picked at us, and you know that, right? You know, when we started tournament prep, those are the things that we'd always look at. So that's my piece. And then for me, my energy level, I'm loud, right? I have that Middle Eastern loud spirit, and I showed that during tournaments. I was very intense. I was very loud. That was just my style. I was okay with it. Sometimes some judges would come and be like, you key up too much. I was like, I get it, but that's just me. It's okay.
I love those points that you gave. And I say this, you know, as we're starting to ramp up for nationals, I tell people, like you said, head turns, chambers, and stances. I tell that to people, and it's like, look, it's not just the form that you practice. When we do forms in class, you have hundreds of opportunities to practice all of those things. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like you said, it's the little things, like just doing those things will make your form better. And I just like, now's the time to start. Like, just because I look at your form and tell you to fix something, it's not going to make your form better. Right?
Exactly.
It's doing it. Oh, like you said, putting it in the time, and that time's in class too. It's in, like exactly what you said, whatever time you want to put into it is, you know, the effort you put in is the results that you'll get out.
Yeah. And think about it this way, right? And this is for anybody who's listening or anybody who's going to show it to their students. Think about it this way. If every form or every technique that I did was a part of a competition where I was grading myself or I was being graded, how would I perform? Like if you watch students when they're testing and they're doing the early hyungs, and then they get to the advanced hyungs, and then they get to the hyung that they compete with for their tournament, how different do they act when they're doing that specific form? And like you mentioned, they had all these other forms that they could have done the same thing for, right? But it's no, because I'm going to get tired.
Right. Don't compartmentalize your forms.
Exactly.
Right. Everything is the same. A couple things. Chrissy Downs says, excellent role model and instructors in both of you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Downs family is the best. That
they are.
Eric, I don't know about.
Eric is questionable. Brandon, just real quick, talking about students becoming better than their instructors. Brandon, when I first was teaching at Kennett, he was what, 4?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
When he started. And my man was like, he would come up to our waist at the time. And then I left, and then you took him on, and then you left, and then Master Setyanto took him on. And I feel like he's better than all 3 of us, to be honest with you. And that's not because Christy's on the phone, but he is. Like, he is just a phenomenal martial artist. You watch him, you watch his techniques, and every student has their challenges, but you watch him teach, you watch him work with other students. Those are the things that make you proud, right? Like, hey, we did something right.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. He gets it, right? He gets the details, and he gets the time and effort that it takes to get better at those. Master Roman says, hello. Master Setyanto, the rocket. Master Setyanto says, to the rest of us mere mortals, it would be months to catch up to Mel.
Not at all.
Master Claus posted a ninja, so I guess you're a ninja now. And Master Setyanto said, Brandon's a beast. I agree. Jose de Almeida from Mozambique, I believe he's from Mozambique, he says Tung Su.
Tung Su. It's interesting. So Master Claus, I have a funny story about Master Claus. When
who doesn't?
Yeah, it doesn't involve lawnmowers.
Yeah,
just we were at one of the Ramblewood camps, and he was teaching a sparring class, and I was 13 or 14 at the time, I guess. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm tough stuff, because between the ages of 13 and 18, you're pretty much immortal in your own mind until somebody humbles you, like Master Claus. And I'm sitting there and I'm sparring Master Claus, right? And he's the timekeeper. And I'm just like, I got this. And I'm like wailing on him, and he's coming back at me. And then I'm like, I think time's supposed to be up, and we're still sparring, and he's beating up on me. And now he's beating up on me more. And I'm like, man, I'm running out of breath. What's going on? And he just smashed me. And later on, I'd always be encouraged to see Master Claus and want to spar him more, because his endurance was just out of this world. I'm like, how do you do that? He's like, I just don't stop, man. I just don't stop. Not knowing that he was an ultra marathoner and all of these other things that help the lung capacity. But he's a great guy.
Yeah, I remember when I started teaching there, I would put my sparring gear on and we would spar, and he'd be the one guy, he'd just like lean on his hand, he'd put his hands on his knees and just kind of lean over. And then before you know it, he's spinning crescent kick or axe kicking you in the face, or spinning your helmet off to the side.
Oh, man, it's so true.
Yeah, and Master Setyanto said after he ate a pizza.
Yes. Carb loading.
We talked, yeah. Anthony Bracco says, to this day, watching the competition at the Region 8 tournaments I watched as a gut were very formative in my training. Your whole division and those of both of your wives really inspired me. You guys are awesome. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate the kind words.
Mr. Bracco. Yes, sir.
You rise to the occasion. Basically once Master Setyanto left, I did better in the forms. I would always hang in sparring, but
yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy as people see it. And it goes to what we do in World Tung Sudo, right? Because if you think about Grandmaster Shin and Grandmaster Bodwin and Grandmaster Strong and the lives that they've led, and how they grow within the organization. And as people go out of certain positions, other people have to take their place, and seeing the level of competition continue to get better, right? Like it's always that question of, you know, if Muhammad Ali was in his prime and Mike Tyson was in his prime, who would win? The reality is what difference does it make if the sport evolved, right? And our art is evolving because of people like you and your students and everyone else. And that's really, I think, in my mind, what Grandmaster Shin's vision really was, is how do we let the legacy of the World Tongue Sudo continue to go and evolve?
Cool. That's a great segue to asking you about Grandmaster Shin. Do you have any memories that you can share of him?
Absolutely. I'll share two. One martial art related, and then the other not so much. So I'll start with the not so much one. So I was Grandmaster Shin's techie. I was his tech guy, or computer nerd, as Master Godwin called it. So at one point when Grandmaster Shin was living close by and I was working under Master Godwin, he came up to me. Master Godwin was like, "Hey, listen, you know, Grandmaster Shin's having some technical issues at home and things like that. Do you mind going and helping out?" I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And it was really interesting because, you know, you walk into a gentleman's home, it's usually, you know, you have a certain level of respect, but now you're walking into Grandmaster Shin's home, right? And then Mrs. Shin is there, and we're just having a regular conversation that's non-martial arts related, right? And you're like, you just feel weird, right? Because it's like, I'm out of uniform. I'm not like, do I need to be in uniform? Should I walk in my uniform? You still bow on those protocols, you know, ultimately from a cultural standpoint. A lot of things that happen at work right now professionally, I always still say yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. And usually the typical response is, hey, you don't have to do that for me. And then my response to that is actually I do, because that's what's ingrained in me, right? Like that's a part of my life. And it's okay if it makes you uncomfortable, but I have to be respectful. That's just a sign of respect that we have in the art that I take, and I will hold that through and through. But yeah, so that's one of the stories, one of the memories. My favorite parts was just going and just chit-chatting, and he'd be like, "Hey, how was your day?" "Oh, it's been good." "How's your week been?" "Yeah, everything's fine." And we talk nothing martial arts related, right? So you see that human side of Grandmaster Shin. The other one was at the European Championships. So I had an opportunity to go to the European Championships in 2005. And it's funny because I had just recently listened to you speaking with Master Harper, right? Ben Harper. So believe it or not, he was the reason that I went to the European Championships, because he beat me at the World Championships. So I was like, man, this guy was really good. I need another crack at him. I just got to go. So we started saving up money, and I'm like, I'm going to the European Championships next year. So I ended up going, and we had a great time. Master Khan was an amazing host as always. And then we go to the tournament and everything's great, and we do well. And then I ended up getting 3 firsts. So I'm about to, Steph and I and Pat are sitting there, and we're going through we're getting ready, and they're like, "Oh, Mo, you got 30 points. You're going to get grand champ, da, 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 da." Unbeknownst to me, the rules of regionals, right? Like I have no idea. So Master Khan says, "Hey, Mo, come over here. Grandmaster Shin wants to talk to you." So he and I are talking, and the way Grandmaster Shin always explained things was never in a point of it had to be direct. There's a philosophical story behind it. There's a concept and there's a why. And he just explained to me, he's like, Mo, I'm very proud of you. Congratulations. You won grand champion, but because you're not in this region, you can't be handed the cup. It doesn't make sense. You're not going to be back. We don't know if you're going to be back 2 years from now. And he was just like, and it's just a trophy, right? Like, this is where I started to learn about, okay, it's material. It's about the journey. Yes, you did win, but the journey is what counts. And so that was one of my fondest memories, because he made it sound like it's okay, right? As a competitor, you're always like, hey, I'm going for the trophy. I'm going for the medals. I want to get grand champion, da, da, da. But it's not about that. It's what's in your heart. How do you feel in your heart when it's all said and done? not what can you show off to everybody else. Nobody's going to care in 10 years from now. It's how do you present yourself? And that's really what I learned from that lesson from Grandmaster Shin, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's actually a great story. And I never heard that story. I mean, I remember you guys going and that you got 3 first, but having that moment with Grandmaster Shin, it does, it just puts things in perspective. It's like, yeah, you're right. Like, I got 3 first. Like, you can't, and it was you had an adventure. You're going to European championships, and I want to get over there. I want to go to the European Masters Clinic.
As do I. So it sounds like we're going to do a family trip or just a grown-ups trip. It sounds like.
Yeah, it'd be a grown-ups trip. I wanted to go this year, but I realized it was too. It's at the end of this month. All right, got some more comments. Master Claus, y'all can house me all day long now. Much respect, fellas. You inspire. I'm sure that's not true. We'll
yeah, that's called
a
hustle. That's a hustle right there.
Yeah. Master Wheeler says it's about the legacy. We are all standing on the other shoulders, and that's
yes, sir.
Absolutely.
So true.
Master Fairley has 2 comments. I remember learning Unsu at the Masters Clinic next to you and Jared, and trying to keep up with you both on the jump at the end.
That's a tough jump.
It is. And then he also says, let Lauren and I know we will go with you.
Nice. All right.
That'd be awesome. And Master Setianto says that's the golden nugget story right there.
Yes, sir.
And Lindsay from the UK says, great story from the UK. Master Khan wanted to watch, but the timing, they're actually teaching right now. But they're
no, absolutely. And it's interesting. No matter where we go, we always feel welcome, and we always feel like we are a family. And then the bonds grow stronger as we continue with those interactions. I think in the last year, we were very challenged with those kind of bonds, right? Because we weren't able to interact physically together, but virtually we were. And even though it's not the same thing, it's one of those things where we continued because of the level of strength and loyalty that we have for one another. And that really speaks volumes. There's no other organization out there that I'm aware of that does that. So
I agree. And I've felt that with all the interviews that I've done and the support that people have shown me. It's one of the reasons why I continue to do these interviews was exactly what you just said.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at the time and I'm looking at this. It's one of those, it's like, I try to keep these to an hour, but obviously we can keep going. One of the ones I wanted to touch base on outside of Tang Soo Do, you've done Hapkido throughout the years, and you also do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Talk to us about, being able to do the other styles of martial arts and how they kind of interact or with each other, and why you continue to train outside of Tang Soo Do and those arts.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? There's different philosophies behind training, and when I hear other instructors and masters talk about training, and some instructors, their philosophy is you everything that you need lives in Tang Soo Do, right? And then other instructors have the philosophy of Tang Soo Do is your root, it's your base, and it's okay to go outside and see other things as long as you incorporate it to your base. And I fall in line with that philosophy only because I enjoy learning. I enjoy learning new techniques, and I enjoy being technically challenged, right? Not necessarily physically challenged anymore. I still physically challenge myself with different exercises and things like that, and many other instructors do. But technically, how do you take something like if Master Godwin grabs your wrist, God help you, right? Like it's a wrap. How do you create that level of technique for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
In in learning Hapkido, I've learned how to fall. I've learned how to think on my feet. My arm bars are significantly stronger. My throws are significantly stronger because of Hapkido. Just my self-defense overall is significantly stronger, right? And let's alleviate the fallacy, right? As a martial artist, we have to recognize three things. The first is martial arts is broken up into three parts. There's the art, there's the sport, and then there's real life. And the art piece is where we regulate with our forms and our one steps. That's artful, right? When somebody goes to punch you in the face and then you do a defensive move, that's artful. It helps in what you do, right? Physical conditioning. Forms helps you with physical conditioning. It gives you an imaginary opponent. One steps helps you with timing and distance. But you're not going to go out on the street and throw a low block at somebody, or nobody's going to go out on the street and throw a low block at you. But those movements that you have will help you with your timing and distance. Hapkido helps fill a gap in my mind, where our self-defense techniques are basic, gross motor skill, right? And then Hapkido takes it to a higher level, where there's higher level techniques with how you use the joints and their fine motor skills that you have to adapt. And then Jiu-Jitsu has a similar fashion, and it's more for on the ground. And how do you adapt to that? And I've been very humbled, right? Like in Hapkido and Jiu-Jitsu, the number of times that I've been beat up, thrown around, tapped, all of that stuff, choked out. It happens so often that it becomes a regular part of my life. But the reality is it happens so often that now I'm calm. And the real essence of martial arts is how do you remain calm in very difficult situations, whether it's something that's related to school, work, family, a very dangerous situation. The more calm you are, the more things that you're able to see. And really, that's what I really enjoy. And that's the reason why I did it. Master Lee Sant, I was very blessed to be able to, when we moved to Georgia, to have that connection with the Sant family. They were nearby, and Master Lee Sant, he had a jiu-jitsu school that he went to that he introduced me to. And when I was training there, the tradition that existed and the technique that was demonstrated was what really helped me understand that, yeah, this is good for me, right? This is going to help me. This is going to challenge me. I've gotten better. If somebody goes to put me in a bear hug or puts me in a headlock, I've learned different things. And let's not kid ourselves, right? Like if somebody pointed a gun at me, I'm giving them all the money they want. They can take my pants, my shorts, whatever they need. I'm not messing with it. I don't have those gross motor skills. You know, I may have a better chance, and that's okay, but that's not a chance that I'm willing to take if there's any way that I can avoid it. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting when you, like last night and the past couple of weeks, we have some newer white belts in our jiu-jitsu program, and you can feel like some of them, don't know what they're quite doing yet. Some of them don't know what they're doing, but they still have the strength, and you can just feel that like push 100% the whole time. And it's interesting, and I try to tell people, and the same thing with Tang Soo and free sparring. It's like, tight and like muscles are slow. Like you try to muscle things, it's slow, it's taxing on your body, and it's usually easier to manipulate you, especially in jiu-jitsu, right? If you're tense and you're trying to over push stuff, like I'm just gonna, like you said, I'm gonna stay calm and I'm just gonna move you to the side. Yep, get on top of you and arm bar you or choke you.
And I'm a small person, right? Like when I was in Utah, a lot of the students were fairly new for the school that I went to, but they were big. They were really big students, and they were very strong, and they would just get confused, like, right? Like that's like the confused look when, when somebody walks up and comes into a karate studio and they see the instructor and their frame is not like, okay, well, you're not a big person, so why do I think that you're dangerous? Not recognizing that the technique that gets applied makes a big difference. And that's really the beauty of it. I like watching people be surprised, not because I'm good, but just be surprised because the technique worked.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love jujitsu for that reason, right?
Exactly.
Any shape, size
Exactly.
can take someone down. You know, size does matter.
Yes.
But you know, there are people that can overcome it. You know, when you said earlier that you started in 1991, so what does 30 years in the martial arts, does that even register? Or like, when you hear that, what do you think about that? 30 years, like, as you know, you're not even 40 yet, like some of us.
Yeah. I'm blessed. I really am. I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful. I'm very blessed for the opportunities that I've had in the 30 years. If it wasn't for martial arts, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have the friends that I have today. I wouldn't have the family that I have today. It's my life, man. And it's interesting because, you know, I don't have a school right now. It's kind of, you know, we have a club status of my kids and my wife where we train together. And it's still a very integral part of our life, right? Like, our kids always hang out whenever they come and see, you know, whenever we go over to your house, it's like we've never left, and we've been gone for 3 years. So those are the things that I really appreciate over the 30 years. And I've been blessed enough to have the experience to say that, you know, we've been there. We've gone through those things. I know what you're going through. I may not know everything that you might be going through, but I know enough to help you, you know, get over some of those hurdles and those humps for many students. And really, that's my biggest blessing, is the tutelage that I had under Master Godwin, the instruction that I received, and then the partnership that I've received from all of you, right? You're one of my inspirations, because you're there, man. You're always checking in on everybody. You're making sure that they're okay. Hey, let's go train. Let's do something. And you don't back down when you do. And I love that. And I appreciate that. Master Satyanto, you know, his skill level, and listening to him talk, listening to the way you guys talk and you perform, it's great. And 30 years is a long time. Like, I'm an old head, right? Like, I know that sounds bad in a sense, but there's so many more people that are going to be better and greater. And I guess that's the exciting part. And I'm excited for another 30, man. I'm excited for another 30.
Yeah, well, you know, like you said before, it's exciting to see the next generation. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, at some point we were the next generation.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like you said, Brandon Downs is the next generation. Louis Donahue, you know, talking about like people that surpass you as training partners, or, you know, people that were
Absolutely.
Younger. You know, and our kids are, you know, coming down the road. Like, it's, you know, there's always something. At the same time, you know, in my head, I always want to be that, like, oh snap, you know, Tim still got it.
and we will. So that's the major component, right? Like, I watch some of the senior instructors and how they perform. You know, Master Noshida, for example, you know, he walks around in a very humble stature, right? Like, whenever we see him at the Masters Clinic or tournaments, he just walks around. Even the Sharp family, but when they move, it's like, okay, watch out, Grandmaster Strong,
right?
Grandmaster Bodwin, you know, Grandmaster Strong. One of my favorite stories. He always comes up to me. He's like, I'll never forget that time that we sparred when we took that class at Masters Clinic, and I didn't take it easy on him. And that was back, you know, in my mind, it's like, oh, look, it's the Grandmaster. Let me take it to him. That was in my mind. And in his mind, he's like, look, here's a young man who's not taking it easy on me just because I'm the Grandmaster. And then so we built a relationship based on that, and you know, those kind of bonds. And I didn't even think about it that way.
Right.
Yeah, those are the things that are really cool. You know, you got the Inoshitas, Luke Pacenti, there are so many kids in each region that, oh my gosh, they're so going to far exceed, you know, Alex, Mackenzie. Oh my gosh.
We're at an hour mark. We didn't even get to touch space on the HDL. No. You know, I actually have to teach at 4:15. But yeah, we didn't even get a chance to touch on based on the HDL, like talking about, you know, the youth coming up. One thing you just leaned up and I saw you got the old school KMAI polo on.
Yeah.
That's a throwback, man. Oh, I can't say that I still have my old one. Man, that's awesome. When you leaned up, I was like, I know that.
I keep a few of the shirts that hold certain value because, you know, we have so many. We're trying to turn a couple into blankets. There was one, my very favorite, the ring tee that had the KMAI logo that had like the banner that was on it like that.
The gray one with the blue.
Yeah. The gray or the white. I had that. And a certain love of my life decided to cut it in half because she was doing her hair that day and she got it colored and that was it. But we'll see if she sees this part of the video.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and that was another part we didn't, you know, your other half, Stephanie. I'll have to post it. He talked about her in at length in Master Setiante's interview.
For sure.
But yeah. Any final words before we finish up, sir?
I am an open door. If anybody ever needs anything, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask. You know, we are very blessed with the opportunities that we have, and Master Godwin always says it's our role to pay it forward. So Master Watson, thank you so much for paying it forward. What you're doing right now is just such an integral part of our history that, you know, is phenomenal. And I'm just thankful to have the opportunity to train with you, for you to be my friend, like in a very close relationship, and being able to have our families hang out. And it's phenomenal. So thank you so much for your time, because you're taking time out of your day as well, you know, to meet with everyone.
Well, yeah, it's my absolute pleasure. Honestly, I love doing it. And, you know, I love talking to everyone, but getting a chance to talk to you, it's a conversation. It's just fun. We have a good time. Rusty says, can you bring Master Mo back on for another interview? I would love to. Maybe one of these days, maybe on episode 100, we can bring him back for another one. But, you know, I look and see all of this, like, man, I got to keep going. I got a lot of masters still to interview.
Yes, you do. But yeah, anytime, brother. And for Region 21, I love you guys. Y'all were amazing. So Rusty, Brian, miss you all. Hopefully, if I make my way back down there, I'll be stopping by for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for watching and sharing and chiming in. I appreciate all the comments, and for everyone watching. Mohamad, thank you for joining me, brother, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Thanks, brother. Yeah.
All right, talk soon.
Be great. Tung Su.